Hello, good morning, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Todd Nauck, professional comic book artist. So glad you could hang out with me here during week 6 of this COVID stay-at-home season Post-it pop art series of illustrations. So continuing with Alter Ego Week. Week 6 is Alter Ego Week. So hopefully you had a chance to see the Peter Parker Spider-Man, the Steve Rogers Captain America, and the yesterday's Iron Man, Tony Stark / Iron Man illustrations. I apologize that I had the wrong setting for the Tony Stark Iron Man illustration yesterday. The wrong setting disabled the comments. People weren't able to comment, and I was so disappointed that that had happened, but lesson learned. This is why I say about trial and error. Sometimes we make mistakes. I made a mistake yesterday, learned from my mistakes. Now I understand my YouTube app just a little bit better and know how to avoid things like that. So at least I hope I said it right. Uh-oh, I don't see. Oh, there's the comments. Okay. Whew, I thought, oh no, I did it again. I made the same mistake. So, learn from my mistake, and now I can do things a little bit differently here the next time with a little more knowledge. And that's why I am a big proponent of trial and error. Feel free to make mistakes. Just learn from your mistakes. So today we're going to try Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers / Captain Marvel. Let's try a female character here with the split hero / alter ego vibe. So feel free to draw along. As always, you're always welcome to draw along. Use whatever art supplies you have. You don't have to draw on a Post-it note. If you don't have Post-it notes, that's okay. You got paper, sketchbook, notepad, draw on that. You don't have the same art tools I have, it's okay. That's not important. Use whatever you have handy. Number 2 pencil, colored pencils, crayons are great. Ballpoint pen. If you've got a big pen, just click it and start drawing. The main thing is just to put some lines down on paper, make some shapes, and have some fun. And that's what we're going to do. I'll be sharing my tips and tricks. I'll try to address any comments or questions as I go, but a lot of my focus goes into the art and the instruction, trying to share my tips and tricks with you. But I always do enjoy that y'all are here hanging with me. Thank you for posting, and I try to read them as I go. So yeah, let's flip the camera around and let's start drawing. Here we go. So glad to have the chat back on today. Thanks for everyone's grace. A lot of people messaged me, DM'd me, or posted comments on my other social media saying that the comments had been accidentally turned off. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get those messages until after the live stream was done. But I appreciate everyone's kindness towards me. So thank you. Thank you very much. Y'all are good people. So starting with the pencil art, I like to use my Unikura Toga. You can see the label right there. It's a 0.3 lead, very fine point lead, and I like to use HB lead. HB is a nice soft lead. It's not too hard, not too soft. If it's too soft, it makes very waxy, dark lines, and those can be really difficult to erase. If it's too hard, it's almost like carving into the paper. That doesn't work for me either. I know myself and quite a few other fellow comic book professionals, many of us like to use the HB because it's just that porridge that Goldilocks chose. It's not too hard, not too soft, fairly easy to erase without making a mess, but without creating divots and grooves in the paper, which could compromise the image as well. Not to say that softer leads and harder leads are not valuable, because they are, otherwise why would they make them? They are valuable for certain types of art. It's just, for many of us that do this kind of stuff, HB seems to be a good way to go. Starting with that skull, drop the center line, and let's rough in her jaw and to her chin. Now this is going to be a fun one here. Be a bit challenging because we're going to draw the helmeted Carol Danvers. She'll have her Captain Marvel helmet. So we're going to bring the neck down. Now the neck comes in just a little bit. We don't want to come right down from the sides like we do with Captain America. That's too much neck for Carol Danvers. She does not have that thick of a neck. Maybe She-Hulk would, but not Carol Danvers. So we're going to come in just a little bit from the jawline to give her an appropriately sized neck. And swoop down to the shoulders, the clavicle, collarbone there, That kind of gives us a base to work off of. Let's put in the facial guidelines. Halfway from the top of the head to the chin is the eye line. I always start with the eye line. Many of us do. It's an important line to put in next. Okay, so we have the eye line here. Halfway from the eye to the chin, drop in that nose line. Halfway from the nose to the chin, the mouth line. Roughly. Just kind of going, just basically here. Start to put in these almond shapes. About the width between each eye is a third eye to get an appropriate spacing. Some characters' eyes might be closer together, some might be further apart. Some are close-set eyes, some are wide-set eyes. That's about another eye width to the side of the head, roughly. Going to bring a guideline down from the center of the eye down to the jaw, so I can know how wide to make the mouth. Just really bring home that center line, because it's going to be very important. So let's see, for her nose, I'm just going to rough in the full tip of the nose. A little bit of a nostril. Get her eyebrow here. She'll be giving Carol a more serious look here. Gonna roughen the other side of the nostril. It'll be covered up by the helmet, but I just want to know where the full nose and nostrils are. And then the mouth, we have that little divot, that little trough between nose and top lip. That's my guide to drop in the top lip. It's kind of like this it's kind of like a flattened M. Kind of angles up, little divot, and then down. And then kind of do the underside of the M, up, small little teardrop in the lip. Some people have it, some people don't. You can choose to put it in or not. And then the bottom lip, little shadow underneath. Just a little circle guideline. Make sure I got the right amount of real estate on that chin. I need to pull up my Google to make sure I have Carol's helmet reference, because there's different versions from the movie to the comic book. I want the comic book version. I want to make sure I get the right details in the helmet. So I'm just going to pull up reference so I can see how those shapes go. Okay, cool. So let's see, let's get her forehead going here. So we have the side of her head. And then her forehead kind of arcs up. Hairline halfway from the eye to the top of the head is the hairline, so right about there. So kind of have the hair kind of goes across the forehead to the temple, down, then over to the ear. Might as well drop an ear in here. Eyebrow, nose, that's about the height of an ear. Then we'll have her other ear inside the helmet there, so we'll just be a little dealy bopper like that. Dealy bopper is the technical term. Now we're going to draw longer hair Carol. So her hair often parts here on the side, which will be coming from the helmet side over and around. Now this part's going to get wiped out because we have the mohawk from her helmet, but I need to know how to get my swoop just right. And then the body of her hair is going to stick off her skull, which is very important. So you have proper amount of head underneath the hair. And the hair is going to cascade down. Her neck to her shoulders. Kind of curve around. I like to look at photo reference of hair to kind of learn the shapes and the flow. So that's kind of giving me some good shapes to work with. It's going to overlap her ear some. So we'll just see the bottom part of her ear, but I like to know where that full ear is. That's what this stage is about, is to know where everything is. We're putting all these puzzle shapes together, and we got to know where certain things are so we can draw other things. All right, so let's see. We'll just finish out this Carol side, and then we'll work on the Captain Marvel side. You can draw short hair Carol if you want. You can draw medium length hair Carol. You can draw long hair Carol. You can draw bald Carol if you want. You can make her bald if you want. It's your picture. You can make buzz cut Carol. You can make braided Carol. You can make her hair any way you want. She's had a lot of hairstyles. Now, I don't think she's ever truly been bald, but it's not to say she couldn't be bald. You could say that for any character. It's just we haven't seen that in any comic story that I'm aware of. Okay, now let's see. Oh, and let's see her. So we got these darker eyelash lines, and then we want to put in the pupil and iris. I like to put in a little circle over here on the side for the highlight. In the iris, which is the color part of the eye. Pupil is the black part. Okay. Now let's give her a bomber jacket, because she's a pilot, and a t-shirt. So we're going to draw the ribbed collar of the t-shirt like that. And then the bomber jacket, we'll give her one of those fluffy collar flight jackets. And then the shoulder, maybe a little seam that runs down the side. So you can give her any kind of jacket you want. You can give her a business sports coat if you want. You can give her a blouse, a tank top. Carol can wear whatever you want her to wear. All right, now for the helmeted side. Now we're going to take out this little swoop because it won't belong on this side, but it was my guideline to make sure I got her bangs flipping over as best I could. So let's work on her helmet here. So from her nose, the bottom of the helmet, her helmet completely covers her nose. Comes to the side of her face. She has a little chin guard thing, which will tuck up right to the bottom lip, down, and then runs right along the jawline. So this part's flesh, this part's red. Let's get this other eye in. Now, this eye is not going to have eyelashes, nor is it going to have pupils or irises, but it will be almond shape. We're not going to have an eyebrow, but we are going to see an indication of the brow in the shape of the helmet as it forms around the skull. And then we ride up this line here of the forehead, side of the head to the forehead, and up to the skull. In fact, we'll extend the helmet just a little bit because it's not like a Spider-Man mask. We'll just extend it off her skull a little bit. It's a space age helmet. So it's got space age polymers that allows it to do magnificent things. And we have her mohawk. So we have this little guideline, little housing here for the hair to come flowing out. So with the mohawk, we're just going to kind of let it flow off here to this side since we have the center line and we don't want this aspect of her crossing over into the alter ego dimension. So all of the mohawk will flow up and over to our right a little bit. Make use of that real estate over there. Now let's see, in the comic book version, she has these banded ridges that run along. Let's see, we're gonna complete the guideline here that run along this side of her face. Should kind of angle down towards the ear. And then she has the suit, her super suit. Where's her super suit? So there's a trim to the collar and a button. Boink. Bottom part of the collar, and the yellow trim runs down the seam and the front of her uniform. Bring these shoulders over. There's a seam that runs kind of from her shoulders down her chest, and we might see a little peak of the gold trim that comes from the star, the kind of chevron shape. So we'll see just a little bit of that. So this will be red, that part will be yellow, and then the star is down here off camera. Okay. Just a few adjustments there. Now I think we're ready to move to inks. We've got a lot of shapes to play with here. So we're gonna crack into inks using my black Micron pens, my 08, my 01, and we'll have the 005 for those fine details. Right now we're gonna start with the 08. And let's start inking the Carol side first. Gonna start with her hair with the bangs because I like to work foreground to background as I overlap things. Thicker line for the contours, which are these outer parts that kind of really define, and some of the inner parts, like this bang here, that defines the shape. And then we have some thinner detail lines to enhance that aspect, that shape. Swoopy lines as we let the hair fall from her head, the top of her head, down her neck and shoulders. And again, I do encourage looking at photo reference of real life hair, to study hair, study the shapes. It takes a while to kind of develop the eye for it. And it can always be a challenge depending on the hairstyle one needs to draw. Sometimes I encounter a hairstyle, it's like, man, those curls are so challenging. It's hard to figure out which way to make my lines to reflect that hairstyle or flow or shape. But that's kind of the fun of putting it together like a puzzle. So think of it like a puzzle, and you kind of have to stick with it, trial and error, make some lines, erase some lines, try again. And I believe the more that one does that, the better chance they have at kind of mastering it, kind of getting to a point where it feels natural, kind of muscle memory sort of thing. To her chin there. Got that bottom earlobe. The hair is covering most of the earlobe, a little hair coming down in between her chin and ear. Let's see, we have her t-shirt collar. That's the main shape, and then I'll have thin shapes, or thin lines here to show that ribbed t-shirt texture. And then we have her flight jacket. And give some initial fuzzy lines here to create that furry, fuzzy flight jacket collar. Maybe a few little tick lines here to convey that fuzziness. Then her shoulders. And that seam that might run across the shoulder. All right, we're going to fully render out Carol, and then we'll tackle the Captain Marvel side. So I'm going to switch to the 0.1 micron next. Got a few more wisps of hair. Some nice thinner lines there. Nice kind of thin eyebrow. Let's get that top eyelid working. Maintaining that almond shape to the eye. Actually, I need a little finer control here, so I'm going to switch to the 0.05 to make sure I have a nice crisp line. Got to angle the paper here if you don't mind. Get just the right angle to achieve my goal. Pull some eyelashes from that dark. Just kind of pull them out and away, thick to thin, to where they come to a nice little point. Got that top eyelid, because we have her giving a serious look. She means business. You can give your Carol any expression you want. A few little cheek lines there. Now I drew in a lot of shapes for the nose, but I only need the nostril. So just like that, that's all I need. Now for her lips, there's going to be a consistency of the lip from one side to the other, so we'll just go ahead and ink in the full lip. A little heavier line underneath that bottom lip creates a nice shadow, nice subtle depth. Very, very subtle. Maybe with this fine point pen, a few more fuzzy lines in there. Clean up some of these lines here. Maybe a few more wisps of hair. More concentrated back here. That's more towards the back of her hair, so less light's getting back there. So we put a few more lines for a denser concentration of line to create an illusion of depth from where the light's hitting out here to where the light's not hitting back there. And we'll reflect that in the colors as well. So now back to the 0.8. Let's work on the Captain Marvel side. We'll just finish off this helmet here. The main contour shape. And then see this mohawk is going to overlap much of the top of her head because the hair is flipping over. So we have these chunks of hair. So they kind of pull from the center. See, we have that little kind of center housing detail there. Okay, and let's get the rest of the head here, the helmet. Just sticks off her skull just a bit. Let's get this ear housing thingy. A little darker line at the bottom of the housing to create a little sense of shadow. Now work on our uniform a little bit. So we got that yellow trim, yellow button, a little bit darker on the bottom of that circle, again, to create that sense of shadow. It's very subtle. It's a very subtle line variation. And it's these subtleties that build throughout the illustration that kind of communicate subtlety to your viewer. Even here with this trim, this line is a little thinner than this line because this line is connected to the uniform, or the bottom of what's connected. I mean, the whole thing's connected to the uniform, but this is where we're seeing it because it's going to it's cylindrical, so it curves around. So a little darker here, but a little thicker. It creates just a very subtle sense of shadow. Little seam right there. So it's just these little things we think about that we do over and over and over again to where they become second nature. And let's see, we got this yellow stripe. A little bit of shoulder muscle right there. Okay, now we want to work on the inside of her helmet. So just to really get a nice delineation of the half and half, nice straight line, I'm going to use my triangle here and draw in that mask line. I don't want to go down through the skin part because her skin is the same on both sides of her face. We just want the costume. And so this red is separate from the skin. So that's why I only brought the line down that far. Then we have the part that goes over her nose and across her cheek, a little bit of a nostril there. Peeking out from underneath, a little shadow. Then, oh yeah, we have the half of the chin guard. Just taking it right to the bottom lip, over, down, and back up to meet there. And then her, what is that, her left eye. Gonna put a little bit of a line weight to it, a little darker line to really set the eye in the helmet, but I'm not putting eyelashes because the eyelashes would not come through. Now, if you want to put eyelashes on your helmet, go for it. Go for it. If you want to add some eyelash on there, I have no problem with that. You're welcome to do that if that looks cool to you. I personally am choosing not to, but it doesn't mean that you have to make the same choice. It's your drawing. You get to choose. Just like this is my drawing, and I'm getting to make my choice, and that's kind of the fun of it. All right, so now we have the side seam that runs down the contour of her side of her head, forehead, temple to the eye, kicking out for the cheek and then down. Now we have the kind of banded metal, so we have this line that comes up through here. These lines kind of radiate towards the ear guard. Per the established reference that I looked up. And we're going to, because of space, she has little neck. The helmet comes down to when she's in helmet mode, it goes all the way down to her collar. So I'm just putting a little banded metal on the neck there. Not that I'm seeing that reflected in the reference I pulled up, but I think it looks cool, so I made that choice. It's an artistic liberty, I think, that is okay to take. I don't think my editors would quibble. But if they did, I'd just erase it out. It's like, you got it, boss. All right, so I think just gonna make a little adjustment here on the eye. Just beef up that iris a little bit. Okay. Not putting a lot of lines on her face, like underneath the eye for a shot this small. Don't want too many lines on her face because it could make her look older than maybe what I want her to be. So I'm choosing not to do that. So now while I let this ink dry here for a sec, I'm gonna recap my pens. Have I ever done comic work for IDW before? I do not believe that I did. I think the only work I've done for them was a variant cover for one of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer comics. What was the name of that girl played by Charisma Carpenter? What was her name? She was later on the show, Angel. So Angel. I drew the Charisma Carpenter character. I cannot think of her character's name. I drew a variant cover of her for the Angel series. So let's see. Now I'm going to, I think we should be dry here. I can take my eraser. Cordelia, that's it. Thank you, Cordelia. I drew a Cordelia variant for the Angel series maybe like 10 years ago. But other than that, I don't think I've done anything else for IDW. I currently work for Marvel. I've spent a lot of years working for DC. I recently did the Mystery Science Theater series for Dark Horse. And I used to work at Image Comics for Rob Liefeld and more recently Robert Kirkman, the Walking Dead Invincible guy. I did the Invincible Universe spin-off series for a couple of years prior to going back to Marvel to work on Nightcrawler and everything I've done since 2014 for Marvel. So those are the companies that I've mostly worked for. Marvel, DC, and a couple of Image studios. Extreme Studios for Rob Liefeld, where I got my start, and Skybound for Robert Kirkman, which I worked there for, about 10 years ago. All right, so now we can crack into some Copic color. So we've got a light blue Post-it here, almost like a periwinkle blue. So I'm going to start with some E01. I'm going to color the dark parts of her face and then work towards coloring the lighter parts, moving towards the light. So I'm going to sculpt the different shapes and angles of her face. So like along the cheek, the chin, here under the neck. Even though I didn't draw in neck muscles, I can imagine where they are and I can bring my color in to sculpt around that. Underneath the hair, the flip of the hair, under the eyes, under the eyebrow. We'll fade towards the chin. Now to come in with some E00. It's a lighter shade of the light E family. Gonna start blending towards the cheeks. Don't want a super big highlight on her neck there. Don't want it to look like a bulging neck muscle. And then I'm gonna bring in some pinks, like for her nose, like I like to do, R20. Calling out the Copic codes in case anyone else is coloring with Copic markers, but color with whatever you got. You can choose shades of pink or red, yellow, blue, whatever you have that you need to achieve the colors you're working on. So you're not limited by just the colors I'm calling out here. Now for our little R11, so I'm using these peach tones and these pink tones to kind of sculpt the shapes of her face and the colors of her face. Now Copic marker will dry lighter than what I'm laying down here, much like with the watercolor. Now a little R00 here. Very, very, very super light shade of pink to kind of blend all these peach colors and pink colors together. All right, I'm going to bring in a little E13. It's kind of like a brownish color for the eyelid. Let's color the lips with some pinks. I'm going to start with some RV95. It's kind of a very dark, it's kind of like almost like a mauve or mauve. I've heard it both ways. So the top lip and at the bottom of the bottom lip, kind of like my darker, almost shadow color. And then some RV32, which is a lighter shade of pink, to kind of blend through there. Let's see, Carol has blue eyes, so I'm going to start with some B02. And then darken that up just at the top near the eyelid with some B04. And let's deal with this blonde hair. I'm going to use my 3 favorite colors I use for blonde hair, starting at the root with more of a shadow color. The E84, it's kind of a khaki color. I'm going to pull from the root out because that's where less light is hitting. I can use this to both pull from the root and also sculpt some of the outer shapes, the parts that are further away from the light. When I start coloring over this with some yellows, it will lighten up this khaki color. Because the Copic markers are made to blend. And when the ink touches the other inks, it can like reactivate the ink and start to blend to make new colors, which is really cool, which is something I really enjoy about working with these markers here. Now for some, we're going to start going lighter. Y21 is my next color I like to use. So just coloring over that khaki and pulling towards the light source, which I'm establishing is from above, because that's where most light comes for us, is from above, whether it be a light in our ceiling or the sun or a street lamp or whatnot. Then a little Y00, it's a very, very light shade of yellow. Just kind of blend it all together and phase it out, leaving a little color of the board for a bit of a highlight as well, especially up here towards the top of her head. All right, let's color that shirt, that t-shirt. I want a light neutral gray is my choice, kind of like a workout t-shirt, much like the shirt, that 9 Inch Nails shirt she wore in the movie. So a little N3, neutral gray 3. That's about all we need of that. Gonna come in with some warm gray for the fur of her flight jacket. So some warm gray 3. Just kind of feather it in. A little darker where her hair overlaps, and then towards the outside here, just like that. And then the brown of the bomber jacket. Let's start with some E57. It's just a little bit like that. And then more E55. that takes care of that. So I'm going to bring in a little darker neutral gray here, just for where her jacket overlaps her t-shirt. And I'm also seeing I forgot to color her jacket underneath her collar there. So I'm just going to throw a little of that E57 underneath there. All right, so we got Carol going. Now let's work on her Captain Marvel side, and then we'll come in with more of the grayscale shadows. So got a lot of red going on here. So since there's a lot of red, let's tackle the yellow first. I feel better about doing the yellow first. So we're going to do the trim first. So some Y13. Just going to leave that very part over there open because the light's coming from above. So the bottom part of that button. And then this trim here. So all the stuff that's kind of towards the upper part, that's where the light's hitting. That's the part I want to leave open. And then this stripe here, I might just leave a little bit open like that, just to show the curvature around the, how do you say, shoulder. A little Y21 for just a little bit of a darker shade of yellow through here, through some parts, like underneath the chin, right where it angles down towards underneath her collarbone. A little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. A little Y00 just to kind of fade it towards that little highlight. Maybe leaving the very tippy toppy part of it open for a highlight. In fact, I'm going to leave that little part right there to make it look a little more metallic, just as a stylistic choice. Now for those reds, let's bring in those reds. So I'm going to start with some R27, my traditional superhero red. This is my go-to red for Spider-Man, Deadpool, Superman, just about anybody who wears red. These are the reds that I feel I enjoy the best, that give me that traditional red. So I'm going to start sculpting out the angles of her face with this red, leaving a little bit there on the tip of the nose to create a little bit of a highlight. See her hair flipping over is going to create a little bit of a shadow. So we have the forehead here, and now the side of the head. We can have a shadow that kind of, or a highlight that kind of runs down. A little highlight at the top of that. Here for the chin guard. Little highlight hitting the top of that chin piece along the neck here. I'm going to come in with some lighter shades of red and most likely my light oranges as we work towards the light. But using a lot of this R27, which is going to need a refill soon. It's starting to get a little weak. But fortunately this isn't a big illustration, so I'm not using a ton of it right now. But definitely this is my base red there. So that was the R27. Now, a little lighter, R24. So I can eat up some of that real estate to get that subtle gradation of red to light. Now I had a little bit of red accidentally kick over onto that yellow. What I can do is take this very, very light shade of yellow and color over that. And like, remember how I said the inks are made to blend and mix with each other? I can just color over that just very, very carefully. And it blends out the that red to where it becomes non-existent. So it's like it's almost like erasing. We're gonna put some air quotes around that word erasing. It's almost like erasing. Not quite erasing, but it can help if you have a little overlap with a color that shouldn't be there. You can carefully kind of blur it out with the lightest shade of whatever color family you're working in. Now a little YR12. for that kind of blending to a more vibrant color. Now let's come in with those cool grays. It's cool gray time. I'm gonna put in some realistic shadows. So some cool gray 2, and I use that term realistic with some air quotes around it as well. Some cool gray 2, right underneath that, where that hair flops over. Around this eye. That ear's covered up by hair, so less light. Gonna run down this cheek. That cheek too, a little underneath the nose. Put some there on the lips. Underneath that bottom lip. Under the chin. Let's put some of this in the yellow. I think this will work well with the yellow. Gonna do a little just a little line right through the middle, a little curved line to create like a highlight, and then the yellow at the bottom, and then that gray becomes the reflective horizon, like it's like a metallic look. Let's put some of this in her blonde hair, just at the root and some of the more shadowy areas to create that depth. A lot of shadow back there, so cover that up with more gray. Can really sculpt out the shapes of the curves and the curls. Just a little more shadow here underneath her chin. Just kind of beefing up some of these shadows here with a second coat. All right, next up is the, we're gonna sculpt out her actually let's, we're gonna tackle shadows for the reds, I should say. So underneath the mohawk there, definitely underneath this eye, this is cool gray 4. On the side of the helmet there, a little bit here onto the forehead. Right here at the cheek, right here on the earpiece, right there on the chin, and underneath the chin with a little darker here on the red. Red's a darker color, so I need a darker shade of gray. So it's 2 for the lighter colors. I'm using a 4 now here for this red color because of its value. I need to go a little darker right underneath the collarbone there. My videos have helped you with your Copic confidence. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad my tips and tricks are helping you. And yeah, continued practice can help develop that confidence. So keep at it, absolutely. Well, a little bit of a shadow underneath the eye here. So where I don't use lines to sculpt out the face, I can use color. To create those shapes. Okay, so next up, I want to go even darker because there is not, this paper is blue, but I want some white. I want some white in her eyeball and this eyeball, but I want some gray to kind of establish the shape of it. I use a shade darker than I would use if I was coloring on white paper. So I'm just going to go right underneath that top eyelid. But you're saying, Todd, that's too dark. That gray is too dark. I know. Stick with me, folks, because it's time for the white colored pencil. I'm going to color white over that gray and over the colored paper that I want white, and it lightens that gray up to just the perfect shade of light gray, the shade I would choose to color if this was white paper. So both ways. So there we go. Now we have white eyes on Carol here. Carol and Captain Marvel. And we're going to put some white in this fuzzy bomber jacket collar, flight jacket collar. So we can just color over those cool, warm grays. I guess there was a little cool gray shadow in there. And then that lightens that up. So next up is, let's drop in a background here for her. So I was thinking of splitting it up. Gonna have space for this side, and then maybe it's either like a hanger or a satellite. She's on the Alpha Flight satellite on that side. So let's start with the hanger side. We'll do a cool gray fade. So we'll start with some cool 6. Just do my traditional light to dark fade. Looks like I'm gonna have to do a day of Copic refills. That 6 is getting weak. Now cool gray 4. Yeah, definitely gonna need to refill these cool grays too. Cool gray 4. We'll just go every other number for this one. Cool gray 2. Just let that fade down to the bottom there. So while that dries, I'll work on space. We'll create a space nebula. You might have seen me do this on the Thanos video, post-it video from a couple of weeks ago. This is along those exact same lines. I'm going to work dark to light. I'm just going to create a space nebula here. So I'm going to take some neutral gray 9. I'm going to create these blobs. Now, I've done a few of these nebulas, so I can kind of do this from memory, but don't be afraid to look up nebula. I'm going to leave some space here because this is good real estate to put my signature and date later at the end. So I'm going to leave that space more open. So it's like kind of creating that Kirby Crackle sort of, like Jack Kirby Crackle sort of space that he was known for doing. So that was neutral 9. I'm going to power it down to a neutral 6. So I'm jumping down 3 spots, kind of eating into this area just a little bit more. Not by much. And then some neutral 3. Every third neutral gray. This is very light, much a lighter shade of gray. Just kind of fade it down like that. Now what I'll do is I'm going to fill this in with some color. I'm going to start with kind of a turquoise color, a BG34. I'm going to color over those grays and over that open area. Pull that down. And now I'm going to go to a very bright shade of pink, an RV13. I'm going to color this into that turquoise. I want all these colors to blend. So it fades from a bluish green to a pink. And then from there, let's blur it down into a very light shade of blue. So some B01. Coloring over that pink, over these grays. I've created this multicolor space nebula. So this ink is going to blur with those grays. It's all going to kind of blend, and it's all just kind of watercolor pool and blur together to create that background. Now, while this side dries, I'm going to take my, I'm going to do a background similar to what I did with Tony Stark yesterday. I'm going to create kind of a teched out background for this side. I'm going to use a circle template first, just because I like some tech circles. So maybe she's on the Alpha Flight satellite, so we're going to have some space age shapes here. Maybe go up to a larger circle for a little more trim. Maybe break up the line there. So I could angle a line up. Boop. Maybe some lines angled down. Angled down. Let's call them vertical lines. zigzag like that to create some little tech. Maybe a horizontal line. Maybe another one. Maybe over, angles down, back over, angles down, back over, and then one straight over, and maybe a little dealy bob right there. And then let's see. Let's put some vertical lines running down here. Let's actually double up those lines. And then let's put a diagonal line cutting right through the center of this circle, double line, and then let's put a vertical line right here that then angles the same angle as that line. So I line up, slide over, boom. They're roughly going at the same angle now. And you know what, that'll work for the satellite. That will work for the satellite. Now I need to put stars in the background, but first I want to give the white outline here using my Uniball Sigma white gel pen. Going to do the outline first, then we'll drop in the stars. Get that flip of the mohawk there. Then ride right down the helmet. And the shoulder there. Now I want to put a little tiny highlight. This little highlight I've drawn in here, that's where I want to put a little bit of this light there, or this white gel pen to just really put a little sparkle in that eye. I would put one in here, but I'm afraid it might give a look of her being cross-eyed, so I'm not going to put any highlight in this one. I think I got plenty of white pencil in there, so I'm going to leave that as is, just for safety's sake. And now to dot in some stars, some big dots and some little dots, some big clusters, some dots that are far away. Just kind of dot it in over the gray and the color areas. Try to create a sense of randomness, even though it's not truly random because I'm in control. I'm choosing where to put these dots, so I have to give the illusion of random by how clustered I make the dots or not. Put a really big one right up there. Put two big ones right there. And then kind of fade them out as we get a little closer here to the bottom. So you put a big one way over here so they don't all line up. I wouldn't want to do big one, big one, big one. That'd be too symmetrical. So I want to stagger them a little bit. Okay, you gotta leave room for my signature right there. Okay, where's my 0.1 micron? Is that it? Yeah, nope, that's the 0.005. Where did I put my 0.1? Oh, there it is. Put it way over there. Got you. So let's see. Drop in my name here. And then today's date, which is the 23rd. of April. '20. Carol Danvers / Captain Marvel on a light blue Post-it note. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Really enjoyed doing this. In fact, I'm going to come in here and just on that side, just put a little with a little white pencil, putting a little tiny highlight on the skin part of her nose. I'll put a little tiny highlight there on her cheek. And a little bit there. Sometimes I notice a few little touches I can add afterwards. Don't want to go too crazy with it. Just put a little white highlight here through her helmet. Just to give it a little bit of a shine. Just like that. So just a little white pencil, drop in some highlights. And I forgot to add a little, can always catch little things I could add here or there. Forgot to put some of the gray shadow through her jacket. There's so many light colors on her, I forgot about the dark colors. So there we go. Now she is finished. Yes, I think so, yes. Cool Gray 5. There we go. Carol Danvers / Captain Marvel. Let's flip the camera around and we can wrap up this live stream. All right, clip back into the rig. Hey everybody, awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you learned a tip or trick or two. I will have a shot of this on my Instagram and Twitter and Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. All the links to my social media are in the video description below. They're just waiting for you. Just click those. You can head to there if you're on any of those sites, and you can follow my accounts because I'm always posting on those places. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. And yeah, I hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying well. Keep washing those hands. Hopefully we can knock this coronavirus out sooner than later, and we can get back to normal. If you're able to stay at home, thanks so much for making that sacrifice, staying at home and staying healthy and well. If you're out there on the front lines, if you're out there working in hospitals, doctors' offices, if you're working in grocery stores, restaurants, or deliveries of any sort, from U.S. mail to food to package deliveries, thank you so much for all the hard work you're doing. Please continue to stay safe. Please keep those hands washed. Please be careful, with the distance from people you encounter, so that, because you're out there in it, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for those of us staying home and trying to keep it from spreading, blessings on y'all. Sometimes it's not easy to stay cooped up, but in the long run, it could be better for us if it means we can get back to normal sooner. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a small investment we're making. So in towards the future, and hopefully that future comes sooner than later, where we're back to normal and we can just live our lives how we did before, as best as possible, as close as it was as possible. So gang, thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you had fun drawing. So yeah, keep on drawing and keep having fun. I say that every video because I believe it. If you keep on drawing, you keep having fun, you'll keep drawing, and then you'll keep having fun, and that will lead you to do more drawing because you want to have more fun. See how it's cyclical? It's really cyclical. So gang, I gotta sign off, but I'll see you tomorrow morning for tomorrow's 5th alter ego Post-it. I already have a character in mind. If you haven't caught the theme, this week is Marvel heroes. They've all been Marvel heroes. They have all been Avengers, if you've noticed that as well. So I'm thinking tomorrow will probably be a 5th Avenger. Who will that be? I've seen a lot of people make suggestions, and you might have tapped into the same one I'm thinking of. There are a lot of different Marvel heroes, so we'll see what happens with the roll of the dice. So gang, thanks so much. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, that's 12 noon Central, that's 4 p.m. Greenwich time if you're watching from another country, if you're watching internationally. Yeah, I'll see you then, and we'll close out week 6 here. So gang, thanks again. Really appreciate it. And if you've just discovered my channel, gotta make sure I say this. Please subscribe to my channel. Please, please do. I really appreciate it. And then you won't miss out on future art live streams and art videos that I upload. So make sure you subscribed, and you can tap that bell and you can set your notifications to alert you in whatever ways you like best. If you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up. That means a lot. And if you're watching this live, thank you for all the comments and questions you posted. Sorry I couldn't address them all. And if you're watching this on replay, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. And yeah, so until tomorrow, I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing, keep having fun. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.